So it's now event season. If you're an event, exhibition, open day or summer fair, give the team at Fast Signs a call. They can help your event stand or stall, stand out and make a statement. From banners and flags to tablecloths and backdrops, the team at Fast Signs would love to have a chat with you and see how they can help. Just check out fastsigns.com/Leeds, and if you mention the Lot Pod, I'm fairly certain the guys, Andy and the team, will give you a really good deal. Hi everybody, welcome to the Lot Pod, the Leeds Rhinos Lot 17-8 podcast, kindly sponsored by Fast Signs. We're here at the amazing Brotherhood Bar in Leeds City Centre with our beautiful live audience. It worked. Thank you. We're here to talk all things Super League with two very special guests, Terry O'Connor and Iestyn Harris. Well, thanks for joining us. Terry, how are you? You are literally the biggest Lot Pod fan, I reckon.
Yeah, I watched it for a number of years now. I normally try and watch it when training.
Or trying to sleep or trying to nod off.
No. Yeah, it's good. I said to you before, mate, that it's great when you go across rugby league and you see like so many people outside of like not getting paid for events like this and like doing all the hard work behind the scenes, genuine fans. So when someone asks you to do it, you always put your hand up and you'll do it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And how are you, Iestyn? You've been on the pod before, if you do remember.
A few years ago.
Yeah, very kind. Are you well? Are you keeping well?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good. Looking forward to tonight.
Excellent. Well, thanks to both for joining us down here. I think the best place to start is with the most recent news. It's not kind of Super League related. With Sean Wayne has announced his England squad earlier this week. Terry, what were your initial thoughts when the squad were announced?
Well, it's all genuinely personal opinion, isn't it? Like, I suppose when you look at the squad, what would I have done? Well, there's one player in particular that's missing, and that's Jake Connor. But whether or not that Sean just doesn't think that he's going to play to the way he does, or maybe like Iestyn and I were talking about it, saying that like international rugby going back years and years, and it's not just going to be in this series. When you got a coach there, it's always about like a trust element of what someone's done for him in the past on the big stage, whether it be against the Aussies or the Kiwis, Samoa and Tonga, and those sort of players will always get that sort of like extra bit of like buy-in from the coach, even if someone's not playing well all year. And it's the same when you talk to lads in Australia with Queensland and New South Wales. So yeah, I was really surprised that Jake wasn't in the 40. It was obviously, I was surprised when the likes of Matty Ashton was in, who's injured. The likes of Tom Davis wasn't in.
Yeah.
He's another one that I would have thought had a really good year. And I could go through a number of names, do you know, saying that they should have been given an opportunity to just be involved in a bigger squad, even though they know they're not going to probably make the final cut at the end. But that's international rugby. It's one bloke's opinion, really.
Yeah, that's all that matters, that one bloke. What did you make of the squad announcement, Iestyn?
Yeah, really disappointed for Jake Connor, just to echo Terry's thing. And, Terry just said there, it's about, a trust element and performing on the big stage. I think Jake's really unlucky because he's performed on the big stage now for a number of years, both internationally. I think he was man of the series against the Kiwis a few years ago. He's delivered at international level, and he's been sensational this year. So I think he's probably the one person that you'd say should have been in that squad.
Yeah, without a doubt. Do you feel England have got a chance in the Ashes, Terry? Do you think the squad's got something there that could potentially trouble the Aussies?
Well, there's always a chance, isn't there? Do you know that obviously we've not seen in the contingent that's going to come over from Australia, because you would imagine that Herbie Farmouth's going to be one of the centres. AJ Brimson's going to be another player that's going to be involved, and whether the likes of Morgan Smithies makes the cut. Look, I think whenever you play the Aussies, it's like when Iestyn and I were growing up, we'd run around the parks and it was Great Britain back in the day, and you wanted to play for Great Britain. You wanted to play on the big stage against the Aussies and the Kiwis, and a dream come true. And to play in an Ashes series, even though it's just England now, it's like that's what you grew up watching. You've always dreamed about doing that, so you'll go that extra effort. can they do it? Will the Aussies go the extra effort? Yeah, I think what the big thing that will help the English lads is that we've managed to sell out two of the stadiums, and then I'm sure the Wembley one will go pretty well as well. So, like, the fans really do have a big part to play in that, and they've certainly backed the side. So they've done their bit off the field.
Yeah, just they can. What do you think, Iestyn?
I think we've got a really, really good spine. If Wellesby's fit, you've got potentially Danny Walker as a 9. You've got George Williams. You've got Harry Smith, Mikey Lewis in there. I think the spine's great, and then you throw in people like Junior December and Kai Pearce-Paul with some strike in there, and Jake Wardle and Farnworth. We've got enough to challenge them. We've got enough to beat them, but it's just whether we can get everybody on the field, isn't it? I think what the Australians have got is a conveyor belt of quality. We've probably not got that same depth of squad, so if we can keep everybody fit and everybody on the field in them three tests, then we've got a chance, absolutely.
Do you know another one you could really throw in there, if you're picking on form, and who's done an amazing job, and I think Wakefield have been brilliant all year, is like Max Jowett.
Yeah, I
think Max Jowett's like not missed a beat. And I was talking to Willie Peters a couple of weeks ago, and he actually thought Dean Hadley had a chance, because of what he's been doing. And you could always play fantasy rugby, and you could put your team there, and Sean and his lads could put their team there, and you're never going to get the same. You will get some differences, but like I said, it's opinions. Like Wayne is going to be hired and fired on his job and on the results that he gets. So it's a big opportunity for the lads who've got the jersey. But what I will say is that I think the buy-in from the Speckies has certainly lifted the lads' spirits, and they'll feel pretty confident going into it.
Yeah, agree. On to Super League. What have you made of the Super League year so far? Yes, and have you enjoyed this campaign?
I think that the quality has been very, very good at the top end of Super League. I think we've had sort of 8 or 9 teams that have been delivering a really high standard of performance. We've just had some tail-offs towards the end. They're obviously disappointed with the Salford situation this year. I think that started off well. They looked as though they were really strong, and then for various reasons they fell away. And Huddersfield haven't quite competed, and Castle haven't quite competed. So I think if we can get to the stage where it's flat across the competition, that's where we want to get to. But certainly now we've got nine teams that are really challenging each other, and it's tough to make the 6, and that's all we want, isn't it? We want competition for that top 6. We don't want 6 racing away with it, and we're starting to get that.
Have you made of the year so far, Terry?
Good for some teams, like obviously. Everything that's going on at Salford's really disappointing because I started my career there as a kid, and you go there and every time you go there, and I've worked on quite a few of the games, it's about all the negatives that's going on off the pitch, and I feel really sorry for the lads, and I've said it before that like it's a horrible situation for the lads to be in, not knowing whether they're going to get paid or what's happening if they're going to actually take the field on the Sunday. So actually the build up to games like obviously affects them, and then when they go out on games you can see lads that are really having a dig. Like I talked about a young kid the other day called Charlie Glover. I'd rather talk about some of the young kids that are having a go in the and really putting their hand up, making the way. I'm not saying I wouldn't talk about the older players by the way, but I just want to talk about some positives at the club, because everything's doom and gloom, but the top end of the table, Hull KR are killing it, aren't they?
Yeah. Finally got a trophy.
Yeah.
Deserved, I felt.
Yeah. Willie Peters, like, great coach, great character.
Where did they get him from? It just seems to have.
To be fair,
from nowhere.
No, he's been around the blocks. Willie, he's been a number 2. Iestyn will know. Like he was at South Sydney, he was at Newcastle, he was at Manly. He's done the tracks like as an assistant. He's ruthless, he's brilliant, he's very, very honest with the players. I played with him back in the day at Wigan when he was a young kid, and he always had something about him.
Did you always feel like he could be a coach?
Just because of his sheer work ethic. Like Iestyn have had dealings with him as a manager.
Yeah, I just think if you look at they've got high quality players, haven't they? And I think they've spent a lot on the squad. They're right up there with a salary cap. So but that doesn't win your trophies, that doesn't win your competitions. I think it's the work ethic and the small things that he's got all the quality players do. If you look at people like Mikey Lewis, he's super talent, but he's working off the ball and everything he does, and that generally, if you spill it back and peel it back, it comes back to the head coach. That I think he's built that within OKR, and they've never really had that, had they, for the last 20 years. They've had quality, but they've not had that work ethic with it. So I think they're going to be a tough team to beat this year.
Do you think they can go on, as in OKR, do you think they can go on, get to the grand final and go a step further this year, or do you think the cup win? Do you believe that? Because often people say when you win the cup there is a hangover, whether it comes early or kind of later into the year. Do you think they've got the capacity to go on and?
No, I don't think the cup's an issue for them. I think it was early enough in the year now to get over that. Generally, that was because it comes a couple of weeks before the playoffs, doesn't it? Yeah. Originally, so don't think that's the case now. I think if you look at them, they've got quality right across the field. They don't look as though they're tiring at all to me. I think they'll be in the grand final, definitely.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I think they if you look for reasons, you'll always find an answer. Sometimes it'll be a negative answer, and I think people are saying that, will there be a hangover? You could go the other way. They're that confident, as a group, not just the 17, but outside of that in the squad. I think Willie Peter's got a really good squad that are fighting for to play. And what I said before at the start, I think Willie Peters is ruthless, but the reason why he's ruthless is he's honest with them. He sets the standards, he says what he wants from them. If they don't do it, they're out and someone else will come in. Yeah,
someone else on the conveyor belt come in and take your place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do your job.
Yeah.
Wakefield, they seem to be getting a lot right. They're doing a lot of ground improvements. Looks like they're doing more future improvements with the ground. And Darryl Powell working his magic over at Wakefield. What have you made of them this year?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think it started with Matt Ellis, hasn't it? Working his magic financially. Yeah. Darryl's an exceptional coach. He's shown that over a long period of time. 10 years with Castleford, and I know Warrington didn't work too well, but he's an absolutely high quality coach. But you can only work with the tools you've got given, and I think Matt's given that.
Absolutely.
He's developed the ground.
You're actually on a free kitchen, by naming him. 100%. Matt Ellis, obviously, if you don't know, owns a DIY kitchen, so obviously I want one as well.
You want a kitchen? We both want a kitchen.
That's the reason why you've name checked him.
Oh, look,
what's his firm called?
We need more benefactors in the game, don't we? Let's get it right, And when you've got a benefactor in the game that's going to fund a club like Wakefield to the tune he's done, to get them in a position where they're competing at the top six and really challenge from that, you've got to give credit. They're building again for next year. They're going to be stronger again next year, and we need more people or more money in the boardroom. That's what we need to be matching the Aussies.
The game's stronger.
Absolutely. For the first time ever, we've probably got 9 or 10 clubs in this country now that have really got wealthy boardrooms, and we've never had that. It's always been the strong four, hasn't it? But now we're looking at 9-10 teams, and that's why the question at the start saying that the quality of 9 teams, it's because of the money that's in the boardroom.
Iestyn touched on it there about Powell at Warrington. What do you think because obviously it's flourishing at Wakefield now, but the Warrington side you could say on paper is stronger, but didn't quite. You feel there's something that could have. Why did it go so wrong there? Do you think?
Look, well, if you talk about Darryl Powell, and yes, would have played with Darryl at Leeds, knows everything about him. My dealings with him is he's a great bloke. He's pretty honourable, and he's a coach that the players like to play for. Did an amazing job at Cass, and some of the best rugby that was played in the Super League era was back in 2017 when Cass were unplayable at times. Didn't work out at Warrington for whatever reason.
Asked you what, Tez?
I am not sure. I'm just trying to fathom it out. Because I don't.
I'm stuck in middle.
Look at Warrington. Warrington were really good last year. This year they've obviously struggled for certain reasons, and maybe the reasons why they've not been successful now is similar to the reasons why they weren't successful when Darryl was there. I just think Darryl's gone in, he's recharged his batteries, gone into Wakefield along with Matt Ellis, who's give Iestyn a free kitchen, and he's like spent his money. He's gone out there and got the players that Darrell's wanted, and they ripped up the championship last year. And I think they're doing a great job this year in turning over some big sides.
Were you expecting them to perform so well?
Not, in all honesty, not as well as what they have done. But they're building, and now it's similar, very similar to Hull KR. And again, you'd have to ask Iestyn this, but like there's certain clubs that when players come off contract, they'll say, right, I want to go to this club, and this club. I think like Hull KR now are one of the clubs where players are actually saying, I want to go there. I think Wakefield are the same as well.
Yeah, really
I genuinely think Wakefield are the same.
You can understand why with the stadium and the owner, these free kitchens that he's handing out. And,
I haven't had a free kitchen, just to clarify.
Yes, pull our record.
Just to clarify.
Just in case the taxman's watching.
Iestyn, we mentioned players there because you are now obviously a player agent. How could you just break down like how a deal would work or how transfers work and also what surprised you when you did first become an agent? Was there something that you were like, oh, I didn't know that happened, or was anything that kind of stuck out?
What surprised me, the amount of politics in the game surprised me. Yeah, behind the scenes.
In terms of like have moves broken down because of, obviously you can't go into detail, but of certain things where you're like, wow, we're not signing that deal because of that.
Not so much signing the deal, just knowing how things work behind the scenes. I think we see all sides of things on this side of the fence, and you know, some of it you're pleasantly surprised with, and others you're frustrated with. So to get a big balanced view of how the whole thing works was, it was a little bit eye-opening at times. How the recruitment market works, it's changed. I've done this now for 10 years. It's changed a lot over the last decade now. I think it's more player focused now. I think the players are in control a little bit more. There's better management companies in the game, so you're available for the 12 months going in to your last year of your contract to open the trade, whereas it used to be 6 months, which put the clubs in the control. So now I think you're seeing more movement of players because they're available for a longer period of time, and I think clubs have got to be better with the recruitment to keep hold of the talent. I think there's some good things happening with the game at the moment.
Have you found, because obviously the NRL salary cap is absolutely enormous, have you found over the 10 years you've been an agent that there's been more interest in some of your players or Super League players due to that difference in the size of the salary caps?
I'm a big believer we've got a responsibility to keep our game strong over here. Yeah. You know, if we're consistently throwing our talent over to Australia, we weaken our game, and ultimately the game disintegrates and disappears over here and makes Australia stronger. So that's not what we're about as a management company. But you know, clearly if a player wants to go to Australia and has got a lifetime dream of wanting to do that, we'll try and deliver that, and we've done that several occasions. But certainly that we try and work with the clubs to keep the talent. We look after somebody like Junior December, for example, who's signed a long-term contract with Wigan Warriors. He's becoming the face of the game, and we need to keep people like Junior December in our competition for as long as we can. If we keep losing players like that, then ultimately people stop watching our game, don't they? So I think agents get a bad rep at times for pushing players over there, but we want, and that's why the benefactors in the game are so important, to keep our talent over here.
Yeah, we've also got to take into the players' opinion, haven't we? If they want to go, you've got to, as management, we've got to try and make that happen for them.
And the clubs have got to try and make the club a place where the players want to be. If you look at Hull KR now, they're making it a place where players want to be, and that's not always about money. It's not always about money. It's about the actions that you do and the coaches, staff that you bring in, and the foundation that you give to your club and your academy system. Leeds is brilliant in the academy system at the moment. There's some absolute humdingers of talent coming through. I think Leeds are going to have the next 10 years is going to be, if they can keep them on, it'll be sensational. Absolutely sensational. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree. Just moving on to Catalan, Steve McNamara of a move. Did you feel that I feel he did a really good job. Did you feel that were a harsh decision, Terry, or did you feel it just kind of came to its natural conclusion, maybe?
I got a lot of time for Steve McNamara. I played against him growing up through the ranks. I think coaching's one of those jobs where it's. I've always said it, even as a player. like you have like a shelf life as a coach, and coaches obviously disagree with me. Like Brad Arthur was at Parramatta for 10 years. Like Bucks the Trent, Wayne Bennett, you know, been in the game so long, and I just think that like, was it 7 years he did or 8 years that he did in Catalan? Did really well for him. Got him to 2 grand finals, won the Challenge Cup. Did an amazing job. Like, and I just think that probably it run its course. In all honesty, and like that's not to say that I think Steve Mack will go away. Absolutely, I'm convinced of this. He'll go away. He'll recharge the batteries, and again he'll come flying back into a club over here. And I do think he's a very good coach, and people that you talk to and people in the game that I respect who played under him always rate him really highly.
Yeah. You'd assume he's going to get another Super League job.
Well, he's linked, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's linked. Yeah, look, I think he did a really good job. I think Catalan have benefits. The tax system over there is a lot healthier than the tax system here. So it's you're essentially running on a net cap rather than a gross cap. So it makes it a little bit easier to fit in more into your salary cap. But I think he did a really, really good job to stabilise them and win the Challenge Cup for them ultimately. And there's a lot of people against French Rugby League at the moment, isn't there? But I think it's a healthy thing for our sport.
He has been linked. Obviously, we don't know. We are a Leeds podcast, but McNamara has been linked with the Leeds job. Should Brad Arthur Leeds, and there's obviously a lot of audios with that. But just on McNamara, do you think he'd be a good fit if he did come to the Rhinos as new head coach, Iestyn?
Good question. Yeah, look, Steve's a very calm coach, I would suggest. He's not. He doesn't raise his voice. He's very balanced in his view and what he takes. Brad Arthur's probably a different coach.
Yeah.
So it's. I suppose that's not my position to say whether it would be a success or it wouldn't. It's just about at Leeds is about the direction they want to go in, because I've alluded to the fact there's lots of really good kids coming through at Leeds at the moment. If they get the next bit right, it could be a sensational decade for them.
For a strong future. What do you think, Ted? Do you think if McNamara were to come to the Rhinos, do you think he'd be a good fit?
Yeah, like I just think that it's a huge. I never realised how big Leeds was as a club. I remember back in the day when I was at Wigan and Baz was at Leeds. He got sacked by Wigan after 1 year because he was crap, actually. And he moved over to Leeds, and it was like the best thing that ever happened to him, realistically. And he spent 10 years, 11 years at the club. And we always used to have this argument about like how big Leeds was, and I was like, it's nowhere near as big as Wigan. Like, it's nowhere near as big as Wigan. Like, our careers mirrored. I was 11 years at Wigan, he was 11 years at Leeds. It's only when you get into Leeds do you realise like how big it is. And I remember being just blown away, and like I sit there and I go to every Leeds game, home and away, and I watch it and listen to the fans and listen to that South Stand. It's unreal. It's like, it's a huge club. I never realised it was as big as what it is. Steve McNamara will come in, like I said, he'll be refreshed. He'll have learnt a lot from like the characters that he's had over his time in the South France. Because let's be honest, he had some characters down in South France. Some real wild boys that have been released from Australia.
Yeah.
They were given a chance in Catalan. A number of them didn't pay off for them, and I'm sure that as a student of the game, Steve McNamara would have learnt a lot from him, from decisions that he made that went well and didn't go so well. So would it be a good fit? I think you'd get a good, intelligent coach. But that's it. Brad Arthur's going, but is Brad Arthur going?
No.
That's
10-year deal.
That's it. There you go.
10-year deal.
I won't be surprised if Brad's there next year, I'll be honest.
No, I wouldn't. So Leeds are bigger than Wigan. Is that what you're trying to say now? Is that going on record?
What I'm saying,
a Wigan legend.
What I'm saying is I couldn't believe how big Leeds were. I think I talked to someone. They could have been filling me with a load of crap, by the way, because I'm pretty gullible. They said that like Leeds could actually cater for 2,000 guests, hospitality wise before a game, which is like unreal.
Yeah.
like to do that, and like I say, that you see the money that's around the club and the atmosphere. I think it's brilliant. But again, I will say the same about Wigan. I would never say anything bad about Wigan, because I owe everything, to that club.
Yeah.
I absolutely owe everything to that club. Changed my life for the better. Really enjoyed my time there. Managed to play in the first grand final against Iestyn and beat them in 1998.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. No, I didn't ask you that question. Just on Wigan, Iestyn, do you think they're still the team to beat? Do you think they're another?
I think
in the standards.
I think they look fatigued at the moment a little bit. I don't think they're really firing on full cylinders just at this moment in time. But they've got a few key injuries at the moment. Bevan French probably the key indicator, isn't he? I think
class player.
If he's playing and playing well, you're in trouble, aren't you? And you've got to defend very well. If you only have to look at the grand final from last year, it was that bit of magic, wasn't it? They'll get the key players back before the playoffs. And what you do know about Wigan, they always come strong in and around that period. So, they're probably being smart with some of their players, because a lot of their players are going to be in the Ashes series as well. And I know there's a focus from a lot of the clubs at the moment is to not overloading the players with the Ashes series at the end of the year at the moment. So that's probably reasons for it. So I think they'll be there and thereabouts when it comes to the end of the year.
They usually are, aren't they? Usually around that time of year.
I think that people probably look at the last 3 weeks from where they beat Huddersfield on the bell, didn't they, at Dewsbury?
Yeah.
It was a real close game, probably very unlucky, Huddersfield, really. Then they were beaten by, was it Wakefield, the week after?
Wakefield, yeah.
And then obviously what happened against Cass, which you felt so sorry for them. I never have a pop at officials and that, but like that decision was so wrong, and that probably changed the game. And so the last 3 games, like Iestyn saying, but everyone wants to play the best, and they've been successful over the years, so everyone raises the game when they play Wigan.
Yeah, absolutely. Saints are a side in transition. Would you agree with that? That's a word that as Leeds fans we shudder at, by the way. Transition, I've heard that too many times.
They started off the season, didn't they? I think they won the first 3. Then they went on can't remember, they lost, was it 5 of the next 6, something like that. The only reason why I can remember that is because they did the game the other day, the Salford game, and
I just assumed you remembered every single game.
No, I can't even remember what my missus's name is, let alone remember the games. And I watched them, and they got some fabulous players, some young kids, some really, really good young kids coming through the system. All of them from Widnes, by the way.
Really?
Harry Robertson, Owen Dagnall, George Delaney, all 3 of them are from Widnes kids. And I think Saints have always been there, about a little blip that they'll have either, but you
always in the playoffs.
They're always thereabouts. And the last couple of weeks, I don't think that Leeds were I listened to some people saying that Leeds were arrogant and Leeds were cocksure.
Some people or one person?
Who was it?
What would it called? John Wilkin?
Was it? I didn't even know John Wilkin had said that. I don't really listen to John, to be fair. But I don't think Leeds were arrogant or cocky when they went to play against Saints. There was 2 things. I was sat in the stand watching it, and when Ryan Hall went the full length and then got tackled by Harry Robertson, and there was something else happened that we made a read in defence, and it didn't come off, and I just turned to family and said, I don't think it's going to be the day today. Sometimes, and Leeds fired that day, thought they looked really good the other day, and I think they might be turning the corner.
What have you made? You're obviously a former Leeds player, so what have you made of the Rhinos in particular this year?
Yeah, I think they've been playing an exceptionally good way. I think it's got to be quite pleasing to the eye for Leeds fans. I think they enjoy that style of play. Yeah. So, that sort of Brad Arthur's had to keep that style. He's had to keep that style, and allowing somebody like Jake Connor to play in the halves and have that little bit of a free role. Moving Ash Hanley into the centre, which people raise their eyebrows on, and up at, and you look at that now, it's playing dividends for them. Ash was a centre coming through in the academy, and people forget that. But he's made some key decisions that are really working well. But it's probably that resilience that they've got, which they've not had for a number of years.
Yeah.
You know, when the heat's been on and you've been in them tight games, Leeds have always seemed to come on the wrong end of them recently. Whereas this year they're coming through on the right, and you know, if you win 5 or 6 tight games, it's the difference between being in the top 3, top 4 than being outside the 6, and that's probably the difference this year.
Missing out, yeah. Just in terms of Super League's future, Terry, what do you think it should look like? Are you a fan of the competition as it is now? Do you think it should expand? What would Terry O'Connor like to see?
Look, there's
Super League to look like?
Yeah, there's lots of different rumours and scenarios going around whether it's going to be 14 teams. Even like a couple of months ago, it was like, is it going to be 10 teams and they're going to make the championship below stronger with the teams obviously that drop out of Super League, but there is already some decent teams in there. Interest from the NRL, and we genuinely don't know. No one knows what's going to happen, and do they package it all up to TV companies that it's like a world sort of sport, and will that make more revenue for the British game? I think from a British point of view, and what I want to see from here, and like there's lots of talk about, you know, like overseas players coming in, like extending it next year. I just want to see more British lads playing. I want to see more British lads given an opportunity, and I'm not like against lads coming over and enhancing the competition, but I'm all for like a kid that I've always been against scholarship, right? And people will disagree with me, but I think let a kid finish his education. Let a kid finish at 16. We like myself and Barry and Paul Anderson, Darren Fleer. We only signed at 19. So you get through all that, and you get through like the man-childs that like everyone gets picked up at 14. The big massive kid always gets the ball and scores. I think you do him a disservice, because then by the time he gets to 16, he's never had to deal with adversity, and then you're putting him in a system where he's probably not ready for. So I just think that we make decisions on kids at 14, then we'll cut them at 16 if they've not cut it, then we'll contract the ones at 16, and then we could cut them at 18, 19. Like they've got two or three hurdles to go over, but like we have lads coming over from Australia that only make the debut at 25, 26.
Yeah, much later.
Yeah, so 6 years previous, we've said to a good young kid that's followed the club for years and come through the system, now you're not good enough.
See you later. Yeah.
Just persist with them for a bit longer. But that's just me being an old relic. I've come through that system, so I speak fondly of that system. And I just think that sometimes like we have a lot of the answers ourselves, but we've got to persist more longer with them.
What do you think? What would Iestyn Harris like the future of Super League?
I think the governance needs to change of the game. I think there's a lot of self-interested voting in the system at the moment. You know, I think what we need to do is strive for improvement. You know, strive to keep with the best, keep the teams that are spending more, and you know, try and maintain that level than actually coming down to the lower teams just because they're getting left behind a little bit. I think there's a lot of things that need to change. There's a few worrying things at the moment that's happening within the game, and it's just, I think the next steps that the game takes are absolutely crucial.
Crucial for the future of the game.
Crucial, yeah.
And also what people think of the game. Do you know, on the other side of the world as well. And I know that there's a lot of people over there. I bumped into Gordon Tallis last year, and he's so positive and he knows everything about the British game. He was talking to me about witness players back in the day in the 80s that unless you were an absolute mad rugby fan, you wouldn't know.
Them.
And he was saying about how the British game was so good and it's got its own identity. It's like, don't copy. This was Gordon Tallis saying, don't copy the NRL. Don't copy the NRL. Don't just be your own thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what I grew up watching. That's what I grew up loving. And I know because my daughter and her boyfriend were over in Australia last year, and he said that we're playing with lads in the New South Wales Cup or even in the under-20s. Their attitude for some of the lads in the under-20s would, if they were to get cut by the side, South Sydney or Newcastle, the young kids who were like 19 and 20, they're wired up to think, well, if I get cut here, I'm just going to go and get a gig in Super League. Like we've got to change that perception of like what people think about our game.
I think we've got to plan better.
Yeah, I do.
Because at the moment, I think what's really frustrating for us as an agency and everybody within the game at the moment, we don't know what's happening in 2026. Is it 14? Is it 12? Who's
crazy,
coming
right?
in? Who's not? It's just absolutely bonkers. It's bonkers. And you look at I know you're saying, Terry, they don't copy the NRL, but the NRL are planning for 27, 28. About who's coming in with a strategy of...
There's that diary, there's that calendar, there's that
absolutely
future-proofing.
Is Bradford going to be in, a York going to be in, a Toulouse going to be in,
that's business model. I'm not on about the business model of the NRL. I'm just on about like the way we try and copy everything from them, as in on the pitch. It's like the games are, I'm not saying totally different, but like they're both great in their own right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The Aussie game's a bit slow. Well, it's a bit. Everyone was saying it was a bit slower because the defence was so good. But they used to say years ago that Super League was too quick. But then when you played against the Aussie sides, you couldn't deal with them because they slowed the ruck down, and defensively they were so strong. I just think we've got to build our own identity. Like, if you're always following somebody, you're never going to lead, are you?
They're not dealing with the Premier League, though, are they? We've got to deal with the Premier League in this country. That's
not in Widnes.
It's always difficult, isn't it? Because it's Premier League and then everything else, isn't it?
That's a monster in its own.
It's a huge sport, and the NRL don't have to deal with that, do they? They're the standalone competition.
They are the Premier League.
Absolutely. So it's a huge difference. But I do think
they have got AFL and they have got rugby union as well. Maybe not on the East Coast, but they still are very strong. The Aussie game, the Aussie rules game, and the rugby union game still strong over there. So it's not as though that it's just the NRL over in Australia. I think anyway.
Yeah, there's things. On to your careers. Start with Terry. You were known as one of the toughest forwards that ever played the game, but who was one or two tough opponents that you've faced in battle? Are you going to say him, or are you going to...
A lot.
Did Barry say Terry? Anyone here for the... Did he?
He was softest.
Oh, I said you'd softest. There you go.
To be fair, that's pretty true, that. And I would never take advice off someone you don't respect. So... toughest, like there's different kinds of tough, isn't there? Do you know when you play rugby, like Iestyn would have been tough, like, because like when Iestyn was on his pomp, like you had one thing on your mind as a team playing against him was just to go and get him. So like the amount of times,
did you ever get him?
Probably about third or fourth man as he was going down. But you'd like that sort of tough, and they still get up and they still do the same things. Tough as in fighting. God, there's loads of bloody lads that are tough, who you've had run-ins with over the years. Never really had a run-in with Baz.
No.
Over the years, I think he was probably scared of me, to be fair. Gordon Tallis was obviously tough.
Yeah.
He was pretty tough.
Did you ever? Because we kind of spoke to Barry when he was on the pod, and we kind of said, because Adrian Morley had his famous black book, and he'd had players out in Australia saying, "Oh, he went out and he gobbing off," and kind of, did you? Because Barry said he never kind of marked someone in a game; he just kind of let the game play out. Did you ever think, right, so and so, I'm gonna try and get it today, or did you?
Probably the smallest, to be fair. No, there was no. You always had. I never disliked anyone in the sport.
Yeah.
So I never had an agenda against somebody that was playing against. You always wanted. My thing was, if you respected him, you wanted to get the better of him, and that came in all different shapes and sizes. And I knew that whenever we played Leeds, like, because Baz is wired a bit different than me, that I always knew what he was thinking before he'd even done it. So I would see him out the corner of my eye, flying out the line from like D defender, E defender, cutting across everyone, trying to whack me. And like, I was obviously a lot more intelligent than Barry. And I'd always just like, I remember playing at Headingley once, and he'd come flying, you might have been playing in the game yesterday, he'd come flying out of the line that many times. I just kept on tipping it on. And the more I kept tipping it on, the more he kept on trying to fly out the line and leather me.
More and more angry.
And we kept on going through and like that. Nice one, McDermott. Thanks for that. So I could beat Baz with my brain and with my mouth, whereas he'd always just try and leather me.
Who were one or two toughest players you come up against, Iestyn?
Probably when I was at Leeds, probably the Paul brothers, Henry and Robbie. They were just they were so difficult to play against. From a scrum, they'd stand 20 metres from a scrum and you was just like, how are we going to stop these? Because they've got so quick and the footwork. Robbie particularly off the mark, he was just sensational. I actually think if them two played just in the modern era, they'd be still sensational now. But they were so difficult to play against, so difficult. Henry, when he was at Wigan, probably more than he was at Bradford, but Robbie and his pomp was just unplayable.
Outstanding player. You, Terry, transitioned from prop to pundit. How did that happen? Was it something that you'd planned, or was it?
I didn't plan anything, mate. No, not at all.
How did it happen then? How did you become
do you know what? It was pretty weird actually, because like when you're a player and you had Sky rocking up at your training ground before games, I always remember like lads going, "I'm not doing that, Sky's here. I'm not getting an interview." And I think that myself and Barry were always like friendly faces. So whether it be Bill Arthur or Angela Powers come down and lads would be like, "I'm not doing it, I'm going off," and they'd leave. So I'd be like that, especially when it was Wigan and Leeds, because there was a genuine rivalry between me and Baz, and we were best mates. So that was pretty easy for them. So even when they come down to other things and lads would go, I'd just be like, yeah.
I'll do it, yeah.
So we did that, and then because we did that, we got a few little gigs doing like Baz and Tez at the start of it, where we're doing like sketches and all that. Then all of a sudden, do you want to do a bit of commentary on championship games? I'd never ever had any desire to get into the media. I was going to I'm a joiner by trade, so I was going to probably just get back on the tools and do that, but very lucky, very blessed, done it for what, 20 odd years. I'm definitely finishing next year. I've already said that, 100%. Because like my boss, who's June, she's been really good with me. So there was games that, like when Jared was first making his way in the game, that had been missing, and the scoreline's coming up in the bottom corner, Leeds X amount and versus Saints. And you're thinking, right, has he scored? Has he missed a tackle that's led to a try? What's happened? Is he okay? Just like any dad or any mum, when your kid plays football, rugby, or they do dancing, you want to be there watching them. And when I signed the last deal, I just said to them that she said that, look, you don't have to work any Leeds games, because I found that really hard.
Yeah, I did.
Because all I wanted to do was watch my son.
Watch him play, yeah.
And I said, right, she said, look, you don't have to work the Leeds game. If Leeds are playing on a night, we won't roster you on that night. You can go and watch it with your family. Yeah. I was like, that brilliant. And then, but I just think that I love the new voices in the game. I love Kev Brown. I think Kevin Brown's brilliant. And I've been doing it been involved in the game 35, 36 years.
Yeah.
Like, our Jared's having a baby this month. My daughter, we've got a lovely granddaughter. And then if I have to work on a Sunday, I can't go and watch my son-in-law play and spend time with my granddaughter. So it's just one of them that you think, I've done it for so long, I've really enjoyed it. I'm very thankful to the sport. From when I signed as a pro, as a player, I've had an amazing journey, and I just want to be a normal bloke sat in the stand giving it the ref. That's more or less it. I'm Fat Tez from Widnes, and that I owe so much to the game. Yeah. And that's it. And like when you retire as a player, Iestyn will agree with me. Like, you're a custodian of your jersey. You give your jersey to somebody else. Or same with the microphone. You give your microphone to somebody else. And I've enjoyed my time, and I just want to go away and be a granddad now. And that's probably it.
Yeah, brilliant. And yourself, Iestyn, after the game, did you plan to become a sports agent, or did it just kind of something that evolved?
No. I finished playing, and then I moved into coaching for a wee while. Didn't really enjoy the coaching side of things. I knew pretty much straight away it wasn't for me. And then I was coaching at Salford. Got sacked by Mr. Kukash.
What was it like working under him?
Difficult.
That's another 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, very, very difficult, very erratic. Sort of. He wanted to control everything. Right, very controlling. I was on holiday and I saw on the news that we'd signed a player, and I was head coach, and I didn't know who it was.
Who he was, when you signed him, why you signed him.
And then I got sacked from there, and then I went on holiday for a week. and then I got a coaching offer to go to Bath, 2-year defence coach at Bath in Rugby Union. And then I rang my agent up to ask him what his thoughts were, and he offered me a job. So I just started working for him. Did 3 years in football, actually. Went out to China for a year. Did some stuff in China. Did some stuff in the Premier League. And then we had one of our players died over in China, so we had to deal with all the aftermath of that with the Chinese government, and that was quite difficult to handle. And we had a few death threats and things like that over there. So I then organically moved out of football into the rugby side of things. Convinced my guy who took me on to do the rugby. Asked him for a raise. He wouldn't give it me, but asked me. Said if you want to buy it, you can buy it off me. So I bought it probably about 7 years ago. So that's how I ended up sort of doing what I was doing, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. So brilliant. You obviously made a high-profile switch from rugby league to rugby union. How difficult was that transition? Because obviously you were an outstanding, if we can all agree, rugby league player. But then when you was dropped in rugby union, was it difficult in terms of the attack, of the defence? What you're seeing in front of you? Which one was? I've got about 9 questions I've just asked you. I've just realised.
I've always craved challenges in my life. Always wanted to do something a little bit different. Always got a little bit frustrated when it was consistency and the same thing, and I just felt like rugby union was a challenge that I needed to take on, really. The Welsh Rugby Union tried to sign me when I was 19, 20, just before I came to Leeds. They were trying to force me to sign. Warrington were trying to force me to sign, and I nearly did, and then Gary Hetherington came across and sort of gave me an outlet to stay in league. But then I'd sort of already made that commitment at some stage I was going to do it. It was just about when. But yeah, the challenges of changing over, because I think when you play sport generally, if you play professionally, you've done it from a young age, so it's very instinctive. So as a league player, I was very instinctive, and then you go to uni and your instincts are completely wrong. So then it's actually learning the game itself before you can start to play on instincts. And I actually didn't play on instincts for probably 18 months, 2 years.
Wow.
So it was just trying to learn them instincts, really. And then my wife got pregnant again, and we decided to come back to the north.
Which defence do you think's harder to attack, league or union?
Very different, very
enormously different.
Hugely different. You know, league's very structured.
Usually that set line.
You know, if you're attacking, you know, if you're a halfback, you've got a back row on your outside. You generally got a middle on your inside. You've got a full back out the back. Whereas in union, you know, you might have a prop outside you, or a hooker inside you, or a winger. Everyone's just everywhere.
Just constantly looking at that breakdown and what you've got around you.
Yeah, it's like very instinctive once you get.
Have I got any fast blokes next to me? No, I haven't. I'll take it myself.
But to be involved, it was great. Look, I went to a World Cup. I played in 4 Six Nations. It was, you know, to experience that was pretty good.
Yeah, unbelievable. Who was the most underrated teammate or one of you've ever had, Terry? Must have had a few, right?
Underrated. Do you know, I'd say fortunate that played in that Wigan side. I think signed for Wigan in '94 till 2005. Pretty successful side. So there was. I remember having our overseas signings back in 2001 was Brett Dallas, Queensland, and Australian winger. Centre was Steve Renouf, Queensland and Australia centre. Halfbacks were Matty Johns, New South Wales and Australia. Adrian Lamb was the other halfback, Papua New Guinea and Queensland. And then Dave Furner in the back row, who was New South Wales and Australia. Like 5 internationals.
Yeah, they want that.
And we also had the Great Britain captain packing down at loose forward, Andrew Farrell.
Andy Farrell.
He was crap.
It's him. He's the most underrated.
So underrated, like do you know? genuinely, that's a tough question. That
You've not answered it though, have you?
no, because I just said it's a tough question. Let's get back onto your kitchens. No, I genuinely don't. I don't know. I would genuinely don't know. Like players that I loved playing with, like was like Tez Newton.
Yeah.
But Tez Newton was tough. He'd go to war with you. Oh, he was honestly. So he would give you like sometimes that you'll have like I don't know when again like running nines, deception nines. Tez Newton was like a prop forwards 9 because like on a quick play of the ball, like he wouldn't go. He'd just tip the ball up to you. So like if I was 17 and a half stone and I'm getting to the advantage line like he'd just give me the ball, whereas he could have gone and made 10 metres, but I probably could have made 15, 20. And I've always thought Tez Newton was one of those players, like I'm not saying in the shadows of Kieran, because Kieran was always unbelievable, but everyone who played with Tez Newton like that, he's tough as Teakin.
Yeah.
He's like a proper like hooker that you wanted to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. And yourself, most underrated teammate, Iestyn?
Because we're in Leeds, I'll talk about Leeds.
Lad?
Probably someone I played with, I think it was 98, 99, Mark Glanville, the Australian guy. We were talking about him in the car, weren't we, on the way across. He was just... I didn't know who he was when he came over, didn't know anything about him, just seeing this tackle he'd done that everyone was talking about. And he was just so... Everything he did around the club was just high end. Just his work ethic, his professionalism on the field, he protected everyone, and his talk, just everything. It was just like another level, absolutely another level.
Good player.
Yeah, he was just a glue within that pack. Yeah, he was probably the most. Because people didn't really talk about him, did they? No. So, but he was, he was sensational.
That's because he had all the other thugs around him.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Remember that pack in '98? I was saying to Iestyn coming over. Honestly, that was the worst pack that you ever wanted to play against. That, or you didn't want to play against. Like the awesome foursome that played for Bradford had absolutely nothing on. No way, yeah. You had Adrian Morley in the back row, along
who
with
was about 15 at the time.
Yeah, who was tough as teeth. You had Anthony Farrell, Glanville, you had Barry McDermott, you had Daz Fleary, Tez Newton. Honestly, like all of them would look okay in prison. But they were horrible. And then on the back of that, you had Iestyn, who was like in the form of his life, which was like he would have had a field day.
He did?
Yeah, had a field day.
He did.
But not in the grand final.
Stick tonight.
Tez were on bench half the time.
No, I actually started that game because I had a picture of the coach.
Which current Super League players do you think would have thrived in your era? If you could pick a player up, do you think just drop him into kind of your Super League era and you think they'd thrive? Or vice versa?
Yeah, well...
You'd thrive in the current game?
Maybe in my younger days, not in my later days. Look, I think we spoke about him a lot tonight, haven't we? I think Jake Connor would have been back exceptional in our eras as well. But generally, I think good players are good players. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. I think sort of Bevan French would have killed our era. Jay Field. You can. The best players in Super League generally now would do well at our time, and I think same really. If the good players in our day would probably slot in now.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You could name a number of players, like Iestyn said, good players are good players, whatever era that you're in. You can either play it or you can't, and probably I love the back in the day you got away with quite a bit more than what you do now. So some of the tough players would probably slot into that sort of scenario, but I think like what Iestyn said, like someone like Jake Connor it'd be exactly the same sort of player as Iestyn was back in the day.
Vice versa.
Well, you take your mate Barry Mack. If Barry played now, he was one of the most powerful athletes you ever played with. Yeah. So he'd transfer into this modern era.
Yeah, but we don't really want to talk about him.
Mention him too much.
I come here to get away from him.
Well, he's here tonight.
I was going to say, last time I saw curtains like that, my granddad was going through them.
I've got one more question, then we're going to open the question in from the audience. So guys, do get your thinking caps on. If you had to pick your top 3 teammates that you've played with, who would you choose? If there were 3 you could kind of... your top 3?
Top 3 you played with would be...
You can go through both codes, obviously.
Both codes. Shane Williams, the winger for Wales, just unbelievable player. Unbelievable player.
I reckon he'd have gone well in league.
He'd been brilliant, yeah absolutely really brilliant. Yeah, so quick. Teammates, probably Jamie Peacock when he was in his last year at Bradford.
How old would he have been then? And still
Jamie,
quite young, wasn't he?
He's been about 24, 25. He came the year after to Leeds. And probably Daryl Powell.
Yeah,
I played with him at Leeds. Yeah, he was 33 when I'd have been 21. He just did everything right. So he was just a great pro and somebody to look up to.
The best 3 or most talented 3?
Either or.
Well, probably the best, and I still put him right up there as the best, is Andrew Farrell.
Yeah,
thought he was absolutely unreal. His leadership. He didn't miss you in training. He was ruthless. He was everything you wanted from a captain. His standards were up there. So Andrew Farrell would definitely be the likes of Jason Robinson.
Yeah.
Was
legend.
Was a freak. He was ahead of his time, wasn't he? Yeah. I think it was at the 2000 grand final that he left to go to Rugby Union after that. Probably, I'm not saying change the game in Union, but you know, like when they used to kick the ball down the field to him, because Jason didn't have a kicking game, he used to run it. You could see the Rugby Union players thinking, no, you're not supposed to actually do that. But he was brilliant, and obviously I've took the mick out of him all night, and I would say like Tez Newton would be up there as well, but Barry, because I knew that we worked really well together when we played for Ireland or Great Britain, because I knew that I might have had to do more of his tackling and more carries, but the carry that he did do, he'd bump, he'd scatter people. The tackle that he did do, he'd leather somebody, and I knew that if it kicked off, like, he's at the side of me.
He's straight in there with
you. Absolutely.
No better person than Barry.
No, he actually, honestly, there's a game that we played. It was in the 2001 against the Aussies, and he said to me the night before. So we won the first test. we won the first test at Huddersfield, and I thought, we'll do all right. So it was in the Ashes. Right, we've got them next week. So the next day, it wasn't about how well we'd done it. It was how the Aussies were going to come back. And I'm like that. What? Like all the press was saying this, and like, what the hell do you know? Till 5 o'clock the following week when they absolutely hammered us. And then the night before the third test, it was at Wigan, and obviously going back to the ground that I played for, like, huge game for us. And Baz has just said to me not in bed, but in our bedroom the night in our bedroom the night before the game, he said, look, it's the first scrum tomorrow, it's going off. He said, no matter what, he said, it's absolutely on. Wow. I'm like, I couldn't sleep all night. I was just thinking of Petro Sivnasiva stood in front of me. So anyway, we got to the game, like, is it still on? Is it still on? I'm like that, thinking, I'm not going to have him land the cheap shot without me knowing, and then it goes, and then I get leathered. I said, no, it's on. Anyway, we'd scored, and we started off really well. There was a scrum, I said, is it on? I said, no. I said, right, okay. So a game went on, we were winning 6-0, then they come back, it was 6-6, then they've come back and they've scored again, it was 12-6, then they've kicked the 40-20, then we're walking down to the scrum, and all I've heard is, hey, you Aussie little crap house, you're having it. And then Jason Riles turned around to him, because it was to Danny Medeiros that, he said, Jason Riles has turned around to him and said, pull your head in your pomegate, he said, you're having it as well. I thought, I know which one I'm having. By the time we'd gone down to the scrum, literally asking me, he'd offered the whole pack out. So I thought, this must be the scrum. So I've looked over and someone sent me a picture of the fight actually. There's a punch that's gone in. I've seen him cock his arm, banged it Jason Riles, his head's come flying out the scrum, and I've jumped up and I've just cracked Petros Ivanisiva, and I've landed on top of him, and I've just got on top of him, like, for love and money. I was 18 stone. There was no way he was going to get a lad from Widnes off who was shaking like mad, thinking to just give me a good hiding. But no, it was great. So I would always have Barry, no matter what. I'd always have him, genuinely next to us, because he knows that whatever happens, or whatever happened when we were playing, that we've absolutely got each other.
Always had each other's back.
100%.
No matter who was stood in front of you.
Unless it was the wife.
It's now time for some for some audience questions. Have anyone got one question for the guys? Behind you, Chris.
That's gone well. What?
Behind you, there's two behind you. What's your name and where do you come from?
Nigel from Leeds. Just a quick one about next season. Do you think they should change it where when the on-field ref goes to the video ref to make a decision about a try, cut out
the try or no try?
Yeah, cut all that out. Do you think they should do that?
Yeah, what do you reckon, Iestyn? Should they get rid of that?
Good question. Yeah, possibly. Look, I think there's too much pressure on the refs in that situation. I think if it's inconclusive, it's inconclusive, isn't it? It shouldn't go what the ref thought at that time. I probably think it should be all neutral and just made off the actual camera decision.
Agree, Terry?
Yeah, I think you talk to any lads who go in the booth for the video ref, they absolutely hate it. They'd rather be on the field.
Yeah.
I think there could have been one Alfie Edgell last week.
Yeah.
If that would have gone up as a try, it would have been a try. There's me saying about don't want to copy the Aussie game, but I think if we score a try, let the players celebrate and really enjoy the moment, and then whilst they're going back, if there's anything untoward, then just pull it up. I think it's a tough job. And I was always for 1 year ago giving them if a ref sent it up and I wanted him to be accountable. Where now I'm thinking, well, actually, it's really hard for them to see everything.
Yeah.
I actually really like that rule in rugby union, the yellow to red. I don't know if you've seen it.
The TMO, yeah.
Yeah, I think we should bring that in. Yeah, 100%. So there's no red cards. It's always a yellow, and then there's a 10-minute assessment period, and it can get changed into a red because so frustrating when there's a red card in a game because it's game over, isn't it? And
it's done a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I just think it just allows a bit of breathing space and takes the heat off the ref.
It does, yeah. Let it get reviewed. Yeah. And then the fans in the stadium as well know that's been a thorough process.
Yeah.
They've had the time to do it rather than it's a red and then you kind of go, that went a bit of a knee-jerk type reaction. Any other questions? Laurie at the back.
Got Loz here. I know you might not be able to answer this, but
that's a good question.
It's a good start.
Nigel Wood, what are your thoughts on his position at the minute?
Controversial.
I understand you can't obviously answer if you can't, but
yeah, I think it's very very political. The answer that we'd have to give, so I think it's a difficult one. I
think the game probably looked at it. Yes, like the last time that there was a big TV deal, like they wanted someone to lead the sport, didn't they? And I think Nigel was probably at the helm when they got I'm not sure whether it was a record TV deal when he was there. So maybe they're hoping for something like that. I don't know. Yes.
Yeah, well, he came in for the review, didn't he? To start with, that's what he come in for, to do an over review, and I didn't think there was enough impartiality on it. There were some problems with that, so I think they got a lot wrong, and probably made the decision too hastily. Where they should have taken the time a little bit more.
Yeah. Any other questions? It's at the back, Chris.
Question for Iestyn. I'm just wondering, as a fan, you were probably the most exciting player I saw. I was wondering, after you left Leeds, if there was any regret about leaving, especially when you saw how many trophies they won without you. Did you ever think? I was just wondering if you wish you were part of that squad, basically, if you wished to stay at Leeds longer?
No, because it was right for me at the time. I said a little bit earlier, I get frustrated when I'm in something for too long. So I'm always looking for that next challenge. I felt there was a breakup of the team that I was within, and there was a little bit of a transition period coming, and I didn't really want to go through that, and I'd always had that ambition to play rugby union from being a lot younger. So the opportunity came, and I wanted to do that, and I think if I'd have gone on and been successful with Leeds, I'd have been amazingly proud, but I'd have been frustrated that I'd never tried the rugby union.
The Wales, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thanks. Yes, I do have two.
Liz is only two, David.
It's only two. Well, I have more, but I'll keep it to two. The first one's for Iestyn. Given all the turmoil in Welsh Rugby Union, should the RFL be doing more to try and attract talent from Wales into rugby league?
Well, I think
there's something you're trying to do.
Well, there's talent transfer opportunities for clubs. So any rugby union player that comes in to any team, it's 12 months off salary cap. So and then 50% the second year. So I think Wigan have just sort of dropped into that market. I think there's a lot of rugby union players that are looking at the potential opportunities. So I think the RFL are pushing out now, and I think with the money that's coming into the boardroom at clubs, I think we'll start to see a little bit more of that.
Thank you. And the last one is a general one. At the start of the year, I don't think anybody had Steve McNamara as the first coach to get axed. Did you have a coach or coaches under pressure at the start of the year? And has your perceptions changed as the year has gone on?
I think probably Paul Wellens was one that was under pressure at the start of the year. I think St Helens I think he had a really difficult job. Paul Wellens coming into the Saints after such a successful period, with a lot of the senior members of the team were probably just going over the wrong side of that hill, and to try and manage that transition with so much expectation on St Helens as a club, I think he had a really tough job there, and I think he's stabilised it somewhat this year. Whether he'll survive, it will remain to be seen. But I think he's probably had the toughest job.
I think there's a number of coaches. If you look around the competition now, like Steve McNamara probably was. If you said that at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have thought so. Like coaches are always under pressure, especially big clubs. Like you look at like Luke Robinson with some of the injuries that they've had, and like they weren't doing so well, and you look at like now how they performed the last few games when they get some players back. So people saying Sam Burgess is under pressure as well now. Coaches, like when we look at the game as fans, like we just want our team to win, don't we? Like that's the be all and end of that. Just ruins your weekend if the team gets beat. So coaches under pressure, they lose 3, 4, 5, 6 on the bounce. Well, everyone's calling for the head. So I still think there's a few more tails to go before the end of the year.
You going to say any names?
No.
A massive thank you to Terry, massive thank you to Iestyn Harris.
Phil's got a question.
Oh, sorry. Phil. We won't edit that, I'll leave it in.
It was just, you've touched on it earlier about the expansion of Super
Cheers.
League. If you could select two teams as of now to come into Super League and add value to it, which two teams would that be?
I miss Bradford.
I don't think anybody should be coming in next year. I think it's too much of a jump to come from the Championship into Super League in a short space of time. I think we should be targeting somebody for 2027. I don't think that'll happen. I think it will be next year. Bradford's obviously got a nucleus of fans. I think brings with it, but I think York looks pretty exciting to me. Just slightly out the heartland. Sort of some good solid roots, and I think a lot of the away fans would look to enjoy to go to York as well to see the city, and it's another city in our competition.
Yeah, do you know, I don't get the negative about, Catalan. I've been over Catalan the last few years. I absolutely love what they bring to the sport. Like if you're an administrator, you're probably thinking a bit different to me. I'm just thinking as a fan. I love going over there. I love when they come over here. They don't bring the fans obviously over there, but anyone who's been to the south of France, it is amazing. So I wouldn't mind like seeing Toulouse in. That's like brings a derby between Catalan. Yeah. So it brings something else to the sport, which I'm not saying it would help the TV deal because I have no idea how that landscape will look. But I'd love to see like Toulouse in. I know there's obviously a lot of talk about the likes of York, which is a tremendous city, tremendous stadium. Bradford, which has always got its history, but sometimes history doesn't give you everything. Like I'm from Widnes. We were World Club champions in 1989. Now we're just in the championship. So I'd love
London?
to see. Well, Gary Etherington's one of the shrewdest operators that I have ever met in my life.
We had to pay him when he came up pod.
That doesn't surprise me. We were over in. Do you remember, Iestyn? We were over in New Zealand, and Gary left halfway through the tour.
I was playing tennis with him.
Was you?
Yeah.
So
I left. No, I was one set down actually, and then he said,
holding grudges or what?
He said I've got to go, and jumped on the plane. He went and
come back and took over Leeds with Caddick, with Paul Caddick.
The Great Britain tour then,
Yeah, he just left halfway through. Just come up literally to the table. Lads, I've got to go. Like, where you going, Gary? For a meal?
Did you have any inkling at all?
No.
Not at all?
You never do with Gary, do you?
No.
No. So that's what I mean. So, like, Gary being the shrewd operator, setting up Sheffield on his own, selling it, going into Leeds, doing an amazing job of the Rhinos.
Absolutely.
And now decided to call time on Leeds at the end of the year. Does he know something that we don't know?
Yes. Any more questions?
I've got one more, right? And it's about the officials. I know we haven't got a game without the officials there, but now they're professional as well, and that's their employment. Do we hold them to the same accountability as what we do players or professional athletes? Or
do you know? I always think on that. Do you know when, like, obviously the captain's challenge, and I think Sky do put up a little graphic at the bottom left hand corner where it says like successful or unsuccessful. A lot of the times refs do get it right. Yeah. Do you know, we're talking about high speed with 3 and 4 in the tackle, and like I'm not a ref bashing me at all. And I was always, as a player, I always tried to work with the ref. And I always say this to Jad. I'd always try and work with the ref to get him on your side. So if there's a 50-50 call where you think the ball could have bobbled on the floor, well, if you're an absolute tool, the call's going to go against you, like 100%. If you're okay, it'd be like, I know he's got his hands on backwards, but he's a nice lad, him. So the 50-50 calls, work with the referees. Like, they're only human. And if you work with the referees and don't make them feel on edge, you'd get a better sort of game.
Flows more.
Absolutely. You need the three different teams on the field to play well. That's the officials on both sides. So, yeah.
Any more questions? We're done. Thank you to Terry. Thank you to Iestyn for joining us tonight. Thank you to Fast Signs for sponsoring us. Thank you to the Brotherhood for having us down. Thank you very much to the Brotherhood staff. And thank you to our audience. That's it from us. Take care, everybody. See you on the next podcast. Thank you, guys. That was wonderful. Thanks a lot. All right, pal. Thank you.